Hi, I'm Stacy Larson from the Maitland Public Library. Welcome back to my kitchen. As you can tell, St. Patrick's Day is coming, and it's a pretty fun party holiday. While it did get its start as a religious holiday, here in America it has become something so much bigger and a lot of fun. So it is a great day for parades and parties, food, and celebrating all things Irish. It's a day you can believe in leprechauns, wear green, and celebrate even if, like me, you don't have any Irish heritage at all. Today, for St. Patrick's Day, I'm going to make an Irish bomb cupcake. An Irish bomb is a cocktail or a beer tail where you start with a pint of Guinness and you drop in half a shot each of Bailey's Irish Cream and Jameson's Irish Whiskey. And apparently, if you can drink it before it curdles, it's delicious. That does not sound delicious to me, but it does make an absolutely divine cupcake. So that is what we're going to make today. If you are not a drinker, that's okay. There are ways to leave out the hard liquors, and we'll talk about that as we get to the various stages. So this actual cupcake is a stout chocolate cupcake. Then we're going to fill it with a Jameson's Whiskey Ganache filling and top it with a Bailey's buttercream frosting. So there are a bunch of steps, but none of them are very hard. So I'm going to go take off my little shamrocks here and we'll get started. All right, so let's get started on making the actual chocolate cupcake first. Now, the beer is a really important component of the chocolate cupcake. It's going to really kick up the chocolate flavor and it's going to add a lot of moisture to the cake. So it's really not a liquor you can skip, but we're about to boil it and then we're going to bake it. So even if you don't drink, it's virtually all going to go away in the cooking process. The rest of the components don't cook as much, so those will come up with some substitutions. But for this one, we're going to have to stick with the beer. So we're going to start with cooking it, and it's going to go into a saucepan on medium heat. You want to add 1 cup of your favorite stout. Now, that can be Guinness, is what the original recipe calls for. I don't especially love Guinness, so I'm actually going to use some Murphy's. But if you have a favorite stout from anywhere, just use that. If you are not a stout drinker at all, you can probably buy just a single can at any of your favorite retailers that do mix and match 6-packs. They'll just sell you a single, and then you don't have to worry about wasting an entire 6-pack of beer, or in case of an Irish stout, a 4-pack, because that's how they usually come. So 1 cup of stout. We're also going to add a cup of butter. So that is 2 sticks of butter. I use unsalted. You can always add salt to your recipe, but you can never take it out, so I always use unsalted butter. So that is there. We're just going to put them in medium heat and bring them up to a simmer. That's just going to take a minute. All right, our butter is just about melted. You know, while you're waiting for the butter to melt, it's probably a really great time to go ahead and prepare your muffin tins and get your oven preheating. You're going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. And we're going to make 2 dozen cupcakes. So you're going to need 2 muffin pans or a 24 muffin pan, but if you only have a 12, that's okay. We'll just do 12 at a time with the batter, and it'll be fine. You're going to line your muffin tin with cupcake papers. These happen to be shamrocks because it is St. Patrick's Day. There are 6 lucky people getting shamrock cupcakes. Everybody else is getting plain white because it's all I had left. It was 6. So go ahead and line those, and now I see that mine is coming up to a simmer. So for a simmer, it's not a full roiling boiler. Like, you don't want your beer and butter here frothing all over the place, but you do want a steady stream of small bubbles. So that is where we are at with the beer. And to this, we are going to add 3/4 of a cup of cocoa powder. That if you have Dutch process, that's going to be best for baking. I don't, so I just have Hershey's, and it does a fine job. So we're just going to whisk in the cocoa powder into the simmering butter and stout here. And we are just going to whisk this until it is smooth. Get rid of all of your chunks of chocolate. Mine is steamy, it's hard to see. So just to show you what's going on in my pot here, as you can see, it is just chocolatey goodness. You just want to get it so that everything is smooth, and then take it off the heat and just going to set it aside. All right, while the chocolate is cooling, we're going to make the rest of the batter. So that is going to take some dry ingredients here that are just out of reach. So first we're going to start with just the dry ingredients, and into a good sized mixing bowl you're going to add 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And to that we're going to add 2 cups of just regular granulated white sugar. We're also going to add to this 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And then we're just going to give all of these guys a little stir, mix them up in here. So whenever you're baking, you typically are going to work with your wet ingredients and your dry ingredients separately, and then add them together at the end. That's going to give you a much better mix. It's going to allow everything to rise properly. So there are our dry ingredients. Now let's work on the wet ones. So our wet ingredients we're going to put into the mixer. If you haven't got a big old stand mixer, a hand mixer is going to be fine, or a lot of elbow grease with a whisk. A mixer is going to make this a little easier, whether it's a hand mixer or a stand mixer. So to this we are going to add 2 eggs. To the 2 eggs, we're adding 2/3 of a cup of sour cream. We're just going to beat these on medium speed until the eggs are beaten nicely and the sour cream is fully incorporated. Doesn't take long. All right, to the mixer. So I didn't have all my equipment, I'm sorry. To the mixer, we are now going to add that chocolate mixture. And we are going to now mix this again on medium speed until everything is really nicely incorporated. Again, it won't be very long. So, should be smooth, sort of evenly brown. Now, to this, we're going to slowly add in our flour mixture. And I have a little chute because I make a terrible, terrible mess when pouring in the flour. So, we're going to put the speed on low and then just add the sugar and flour about a cup at a time. So since there's about 4 cups of stuff in here and about 4 little additions, then just beat each time until it's mixed in. We're not going to whip this into a froth or anything. We're just beating in until it's mixed. So this one's still got some flour on the edges. That's okay. I honestly still have a little sour cream on my beater. It's okay. We're just going to take a rubber spatula or a silicone spatula, scrape off everything on the beater. All right, so using your spatula, you're just going to go around the outside edge. Any of the flour or sugar that's on the outside, just fold that into the middle. We're not stirring this really. We're just spreading what's dry and unincorporated onto the top and then folding the batter over it to bring that in. So what you should have here now is a rich chocolatey smelling batter. It's still just a little bit warm from that chocolate mixture, so it smells really good. I really like chocolate. All right, so now we're just going to divide the batter amongst the cupcake cups. So like I said, if you only have one muffin tin, that's okay. You'll just be able to do half of your batter now, bake them, take the cupcakes out to cool, put the new liners in, and do the other half of your cupcakes. Now you're gonna wanna fill each cupcake probably about 2/3 of the way full. If you're gonna air, I always like to air on the side of too little because you can always go back and add some. But it's really a pain when you have to get out a spoon and start scooping to move back and forth. Okay, and that is our 24 cupcakes filled. Ignore what I said earlier, it's not 2/3 full, it is 3/4 full. Kind of depends on the batter you're using. If it's going to rise a lot, then you do typically go for less. But these guys, it's 3/4. So all 24 of these guys are ready to go, and we're just going to pop them in the oven for 17 minutes. All right, so they've been in 17 minutes. We're going to test them now to see if they're actually done. So how do you test a cupcake to see if it's done? First, of course, you have to take it out. All right, so I'm going to use a just plain round toothpick. If you have square, square's fine. And then just stick it right down into the middle of a middle cupcake. Oh, these are not done. You can tell because it is covered in cupcake batter. So given how liquidy that cupcake batter is, I'm going to throw them in for 3 more minutes. In 3 minutes, we'll take them out, use a clean toothpick, and see if they're any better. 3 more minutes have passed. Let's see if they're better. I have a fresh toothpick, and as you see, it's the other tray of cupcakes, so it's a different cupcake. Ah, that is so much better. You can really tell. It doesn't even look like this toothpick has been used. That is how clean it is, and that's what you're going for baked goods. So we're going to take them all out. We're going to let them sit in their pan for 5 minutes. Okay, our cupcakes have been cooling in their pan for 5 minutes. So now we're going to take them out of the pan and just set them onto a cooling rack where they're going to spend, an hour or so. This is really, I think, the hardest part of making cupcakes is the don't do anything. You need them to be fully cool before you frost them. So be patient. Go do something. Take up knitting. Go use mango languages and learn Swedish. But walk away from the cupcakes. Get them out of this pan so they can cool completely. This one's stuck, so I have a little knife that I can unhook it. If you are like me and you are a sloppy cupcake cup filler, that tends to be the result. Those little dribbles turn into cement and keep the cupcake attached to the pan. So I'm just going to take them out and then we'll go away, let them cool completely. The good thing with that is, of course, it means you can make your cupcakes the day before, 2 to 3 days before. If you want, you can make them 3 or 4 weeks before and then stick them in the freezer, which is great if you, say, have a kid who comes home from school and says, hey, I forgot to tell you, I'm supposed to bring snacks to Brownies tomorrow. You can bake cupcakes up to 6 weeks in advance, cool them completely, and then stick them in the freezer, and then just pull them out to when you're ready to frost them. It's way easier than trying to remember to bake cupcakes the night before, then sit up all night waiting for them to be cool enough to frost, because they have to be completely cool before you frost them, or the frosting is just going to slide right off and melt. So I will see you back here when these guys are cool. All right, our cupcakes are now cool, and it is time to make the ganache. I am down here at this weird level because I want to make sure you get a bullseye view while we make the ganache. Watching what happens with the chocolate is way more important than watching me talk. So here's our bowl. inside this bowl, there are 8 ounces of bittersweet chocolate. You can get bittersweet chocolate in all kinds of configurations. You can buy it in bars, just like in the checkout aisle of the grocery store. You can get it in bulk at, I'm certain you can get it at Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. You can probably get it at lots of other places. In my case, I am using fancy chocolate chips. They are 60% cacao bittersweet chocolate. Bittersweet chocolate is going to be the best for this particular cupcake. Though you can also use semi-sweet chocolate. So, like I said, it's 8 ounces, and then it is cut up into tiny little pieces. So it no longer looks like chocolate chips. The smaller the pieces you can cut, the easier it's going to melt. So mincing ahead of time is definitely a help. To this, I have 2/3 of a cup of heavy cream that I have heated to a simmer on the stove, and I'm just going to pour that right in to my chocolate. Make sure you do this in a bowl that will take heat. You could do all of this in a double boiler, but honestly, this is super easy, even without any kind of extra equipment. So there we go. We got some milk. Make sure you use heavy cream in this. You don't want to use half and half or whole milk. You just want to stick with the heavy cream. I have not tried myself, but I have read that if you would like to do this dairy-free, you can use canned coconut milk and get a similar texture. I cannot vouch for this, however, on my own. I've only ever made it dairy. So we're just going to give this a little minute here to kind of seep in, let the heat of the milk or the heavy cream start seeping into that chocolate, start melting the chocolate. Once that has gotten going, we'll just start gently stirring everything in until the chocolate has melted. The way we're going to do this is we're going to start in the center and just stir outward, just mixing the heavy cream that's warm with all those little tiny chocolate bits so that you can see them melting. If you look in the center of the bowl, you can start to see it's kind of streaking where the chocolate is beginning to melt. All right. So, do not do this directly on the stovetop. It's a great way to scald your milk, scald your chocolate. If you do want to keep continuous heat, you can still use this bowl or any Pyrex bowl if you don't own a double boiler, and then just set this on top of a saucepan with some gently boiling water, and it will function like a double boiler. That gets you the warmth of the steam without being directly in contact with the heat. All right, so we are starting to turn into a smoother chocolate. Now, chocolate ganache is actually it sounds so fancy, but it's so very simple. For the most part, you could do this if you wanted with just 2 ingredients. Just do equal parts heavy cream and chocolate. If you want to do this as a dip for fruit or pound cake or anything, just maybe use a little bit sweeter of a chocolate, like a semi-sweet chocolate chip instead of bittersweet. Since we're going to put this into the middle of a cupcake, we really want it to have a little more richness and chocolatiness, and it doesn't have to be as sweet all by itself. All right, so as you can see, we're getting a very nice, rich, smooth chocolate. That's what you want. All right, to this, we are now going to add 2 teaspoons of Jameson's Irish whiskey. Now, you could use a different liquor if you wanted, or you could just leave it out altogether. You could swap in, say, vanilla extract. You could also, if you wanted to make it mint, you could do some mint extract in there instead. It's really just there to add a little bit of flavor. But there is not going to be any cooking of this from this point on. So if you do not want alcohol in your cupcake, don't put alcohol in your ganache. I mean, there really is a pretty minimal amount of alcohol in the whole cupcake. I believe I counted it. It was 5/12 of a teaspoon per cupcake, so pretty negligible. All right, to this I just added as well 2 tablespoons of butter that I have let come up to room temperature. Do not put in cold butter. It'll never melt. Then you'll have to pull out that double boiler. We're just stirring it in. The butter is melting in, and it's all just getting so smooth, so shiny. And that's really what you want. You don't want to see any chunks. All right, one last piece of butter that's not quite melted in yet. You definitely want to get that melted in. Nobody wants to take a bite of cupcake and find themselves with a pat of butter in the middle instead of chocolate ganache. All right, so there we go. That is our chocolate ganache. It is so shiny, it is so smooth, and it smells delightful. Sorry that we don't have smell-o-vision, so you cannot share that with me. Oh, look, there's another little piece of butter. Let's get that guy melted in. All right, so now that all the butter is fully incorporated, we're just going to set this aside, and now we are going to work on preparing the cupcakes to be filled. All right, so these are our cupcakes. They are completely cool. They are, in fact, a little bit chilly to the touch, so this is perfect. If you don't want to frost these today or tomorrow, this is the time you could throw them in the freezer. So they're completely cold. They're not going to steam up inside the freezer. Set them in on a cookie sheet, put them in the freezer until they're frozen solid. Then you can stick them all into a zippy bag and keep them for up to 6 weeks. Frost them when you are ready to eat them. So to fill them, we are going to gut them first. So what I have here is a 1-inch cake decorating tip. If you don't have a cake decorating tip, you could use a little mini cookie cutter or even a melon baller. We're just gonna stick it here in the center, twist, make a hole in the middle of our cupcake. So I have a bowl here where I'm going to, I forgot I use a toothpick. All right, so that makes it so much easier to get that little cupcake guy back out. Let's have a toothpick. So we're just gonna do this for all 24 of them. Stick it in, twist, and toothpick back out again. You could, if you were very skilled, perhaps pipe it in, but this is going to give you a lot more of that room for a ganache, because as you can see, that's a pretty good size hole. And we're going to just fill that with ganache. All right, that is all of our cupcakes. I have one bowl of cupcake insides. Don't lose these, I promise. They'll find good homes. If you have family, they can pass by and probably steal some of these. That usually happens in my house. If you don't have anybody steal them, I have a secret second dessert at the end where we can use these up. All right, so now we just need to fill them. And we have been letting our ganache sit quietly over here. It is much thicker now that it is cooling off, but it is still pretty saucy. So we are going to get a tablespoon. Now we're just going to scoop some of the ganache into the hole in the center of each cupcake. And it should take about a tablespoon to fill a single cupcake. So as you see, we're just filling up the hole. If it gets to be too thick, you can always, like I said, warm it back up on a double boiler. But as long as you can manipulate it at all, it's not going to be too bad. Like you could even get to a place where it's almost ice cream textured, and you'll still be able to use it to fill just fine. And as it cools, it is going to get thicker, so it will not be nearly so runny when you bite into that cupcake. All right, one of the great things about this recipe for ganache and for the frosting we're about to make is it can easily be scaled up or down. If you need to make only a dozen cupcakes, you just have to use 1/3 cup of cream and 4 ounces of chocolate and make half as much. You need to make 72 cupcakes, you just multiply all of this by 3 and you will get perfect results. So a regular batch, as you see, is just about perfect for 24 tablespoons of ganache. So they're all filled. The ganache is going to continue to set, and we'll get started next on making the frosting. We're now at our last stage, which is making the Bailey's buttercream frosting. Now, a buttercream frosting is super easy. It is literally butter, sugar, and a little bit of cream. In the case of the Bailey's buttercream, we're going to use Bailey's Irish Cream Whiskey in lieu of some cream. Here in the bowl, I have 2 sticks of butter. It's completely soft. It's up to room temperature. If you are like me and don't ever remember to take your butter out the day of baking without a reminder, go ahead and take it out the night before when you're thinking about it. It's not going to hurt the butter at all to sit out overnight. Some people just store it in their cabinet. The first time I saw a friend's mother do that, I was totally wigged out because my parents always kept it in the fridge. But it'll be fine, I promise, if you just take it out the night before, take it out in the morning before you go to work. It'll be perfectly good for baking. So it's nice and soft. It's in my mixer. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to mix it on medium-high for 5 minutes. So I want to get that butter really nice and whipped. All right, every now and then, just turn off the mixer, go in there with a spatula and scrape down some of the edges. All right, our butter has been whipped for 5 minutes on medium-high, so it is thoroughly beaten at this point. What we're going to add now is 2.5 cups of powdered sugar. Now, if you add all of your powdered sugar at one time, you will end up with just an explosion of powder everywhere in your kitchen. So it's better just to do it in little pieces, let it get incorporated. So I'm going to add probably about 1/2 to 2/3 of a cup at a time. All right, so all of our sugar is incorporated. I'm going to add now 3 tablespoons of Bailey's Irish Cream Whiskey. If you want to make this non-alcoholic, go ahead and do 3 tablespoons of heavy cream here. Could also do 1/2 and 1/2. I've even done it with skim milk, and it still makes fine frosting, honestly. Frosting's a lot more forgiving than chocolate. So we're going to put this on medium-high again, and we're going to whip it for 3 minutes. All right, so it's now been 3 minutes. It's super fluffy. It's also butter colored. So it's being St. Patrick's Day, I'm going to add a little green food coloring. And I don't want to go too crazy because you can always add more, but you can't take it out. So I'm going to start with 4 drops. All right, so there we have a nice big bowl of pale pastel green frosting. And I'm just gonna clean out this beater here and we'll get to decorating our cupcakes. All right, it's our final stage, decorating the cupcakes. They're filled with ganache, they're chocolatey and delicious. Now we just want to put a little Bailey's buttercream frosting on there. I am not going to pretend this is a masterclass in cupcake decorating. If you want those, there are plenty of those to be had on YouTube, but I'm passable. So I have here a 9-inch frosting bag. They come in plastic, they come in vinyl, they come in clear, they come in paper. If you don't have one at all, a Ziploc bag with the corner cut off will work just fine for this job. I then have I picked a little star-shaped tip because that'll give you a nice ripply effect. There are all kinds of ways to decorate cupcakes. And I will confess that this probably uses a lot less frosting than the blogger who created this recipe intended. She's one of my favorite cupcake and baking bloggers, the Brown-Eyed Baker. I've made several of her recipes. They're all fabulous. But she uses twice as much frosting. So that's a lot of butter and sugar for my cupcake, I think. And this seems to be a much better amount. But you can make as much or as little as you like. So I'm scooping some of my frosting into my bag. I folded down the cuff so that it would not get all frosting-y while I do that. You do not want to overfill your bag because then it will all melt where it touches your hand, but it will also squirt out the back. So squishing it down, work out any of the air bubbles. And just give it a twist at the back to keep it inside. And then I'm just going to go simple and do a little swirl. You could do big chubby blobs. You could decorate them with shamrocks, whatever makes you happy. So I'm just going to start in the center and work my way around to the outside. And then come back around for a second layer, half a spiral in. So there we go, one cupcake. If you want, you could put some sprinkles on there, but I think it's perfect just the way it is. So I'm going to finish decorating all of these guys, and then I will show you that super secret bonus dessert. All right, so that is our Irish Bomb cupcake. If you're wondering why it is called an Irish Bomb cupcake, it's because that is the name of the actual cocktail. The Irish Bomb was the first of its kind. Well, Harvey Wallbangers come first, but now if you go to any bar, there's all kinds of bombs, and it just means a shot of liquor dropped in a beer. So whether it's a Jaeger bomb, an atom bomb, a cherry bomb, or an Irish bomb, it's all just different kinds of beer tails. So here we have a cocktail and a cupcake. I hope you have a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day. Eat cupcakes responsibly. Sláinte. You forgot about these, didn't you? I got a whole bowl of cupcake guts. Now they're perfectly delicious right there on their own, and I can almost guarantee most of them are going to get eaten by a passerby. But here's something you can do with them. Take a cocktail glass, it's a martini glass I have here, throw in, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these little guys. And they are breaking in half, so we're gonna throw in like 8 pieces of these things. There you go, 1 cocktail glass of chocolate guts. We have just a little bit of that chocolate ganache left over. We wouldn't want that to go to waste at all. So we will add a little chocolate ganache to our martini glass, and then maybe just throw in more cupcake on top of there. Then I got some French vanilla ice cream. I'll just put 1 scoop on top. A little homemade hot fudge sauce. You don't have to make your own. You can buy it at the store. That is fine. I just happen to have some homemade. So we will drizzle a little hot fudge on there artistically, right over the edge. Extra delicious. Maybe a little less artistic, because everything's better with a little whipped cream. There we go. 1 Guinness or Murphy's Stout sundae. So enjoy.